Alright guys, so here it is. My top 10 movies of 2015. A little late to the party, and no green screen today. Surrounded by a couple of my, favorite movies and, favorite things here in my room. So, we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite movies of 2015. First, we need to set a couple of ground rules. This is my list. My list might differ from your list. This is just an opinion-based list. I'm not saying for a fact that these are the 10 best movies of 2015. That's definitely not a fact. Everybody has their own list, so even if you have your own top 10 list and there's not a movie on here that you thought was should be on the top 10 list, it's probably on yours. That's fine. I don't care. It's my list. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I didn't see all the movies in 2015. I didn't see a lot of the critically acclaimed movies in 2015, like Dope, Sicario, Bridge of Spies. Those movies won't be on here. I know that a lot of other YouTube movie reviewers have seen them, but they have the time. They do this for a job. I do this as a hobby. I have a full-time job, and I go to school. So, this is just a hobby of mine. I don't have all the time, and I don't have all the money to go see all these movies. So not everything from 2015 is going to be on here that was critically acclaimed or, things that other people thought were the best. So just keep that in mind. And with every top 10 best list comes a top 10 worst list. I will do a list of the top 10 worst movies of 2015 based off the movies I saw in 2015. So you'll get that soon. And I'm going to start off this list with a couple of honorable mentions. Honorable mentions are movies that I really enjoyed but just weren't top 10 material for me. And last but not least, these are not reviews of the actual movies. I've already done reviews of these actual movies, except for a couple of them that are on this list. I didn't do reviews for those. But these are not going to be reviews. These are just me kind of summing up my reviews, stating why I think they're on the top 10 best list, why I think they should be here. They're not actually reviews. So I just want to make that clear. So let's get started with the list. Let's start with the honorable mentions. Movies I thought that were good and entertaining and that I personally enjoyed, but not on the top 10 list like I stated before. And I just want to throw some of those movies out there for movies that I enjoyed. For honorable mentions, we have Spectre, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Jurassic World, No Escape, and Run All Night. Movies that I thought were entertaining, were good, the ones that I had the most fun with. That's what you guys really want, and that's the real top 10 list. So yeah, this is gonna go backwards from 10 to 1, so I'm gonna start it off. Avengers Age of Ultron is number 10. Avengers Age of Ultron just proved to me that even though it kind of didn't feel like it was just all as exciting as the first Avengers movie, because we've seen the Avengers before, it was still really fun. It had a really good plot, really good direction, really funny at times. The action scenes were awesome. It had a really great villain, and it proved to me I could have a really great time at the movies again. At number 9, Black Mass. I don't think we've really had a great mob movie such as this one since The Departed. I mean, watch this movie alone for Johnny Depp. He totally transforms into the role of Whitey Bulger. It's a movie that is kind of slow, but it's interesting at the same time. You're invested in the characters, you're invested in what's going on, you're interested to see what is going to happen. Ultimately ended up being one of the best movies of 2015, in my opinion. That's what I said in my review for this movie. So yeah, Black Mass, number 9. In the 8th spot, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Usually when a movie hits 5 in a franchise, it's time for it to die. For instance, Die Hard. But Mission Impossible is still living to fight another day and going strong and trying to prove that it is better than James Bond. And this one was. Characters on top of great acting, which makes for one of the best action slash spy slash espionage movies of the year. And also some sweet ass action scenes. That bike chase, that was pretty sweet. Alright, the 7th best movie of the year, Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road, it is non-stop. I remember, this is the first Mad Max movie I've ever seen. This was the first one I ever saw, my only Mad Max movie I saw in the theater. From the first scene, I was just like, this is insane. And I was hooked. It's pretty much a 2-hour action scene, but it's awesome. Awesome. A lot of cool practical effects. Insane action scenes. Tom Hardy does a really good job. The direction is really good. For fans of the Mad Max series who were really disappointed by Beyond Thunderdome, I watched all the Mad Max movies after this. First one, Road Warrior, were great. Fury Road, awesome. Beyond Thunderdome, blows. Anybody who is upset with Beyond Thunderdome should be satisfied with Fury Road, because Mad Max Fury Road is just awesome. Oh, what a movie! What a lovely movie! If you see Mad Max Fury Road, you'll know what I'm referencing. I actually didn't end up reviewing AntMan, but AntMan is so great. It does what Guardians of the Galaxy did. Marvel took lesser-known superheroes, plopped them into a movie, and made a great movie out of it. They did the same thing with Ant-Man. And because of all the trouble Ant-Man went through in his production and post-production and pre-production, it turned out to be a great movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I was dying, laughing. It was just an experience. It was one of my favorite Marvel movies. One of my favorite of Phase 2. Ever see a movie trailer where you're like, that movie's directed by Matthew Vaughn, but it looks like the dumbest piece of shit ever? And you go and see the movie and you're like, that was fucking awesome. I had the same feeling with my number 5 pick, Kingsman, The Secret Service. Kingsman, The Secret Service is like James Bond for a new generation. To describe this movie is that it's James Bond meets Kick-Ass. Because seriously, it's directed by Matthew Vaughn, so you know it's going to be somewhat good. And it was really good. It was actually probably really fun. I actually like this movie better than Kick-Ass. You have some really cool spy shit going on in this movie. You have your over-the-top violence that in that typical Matthew Vaughn type of way, and it's awesome. And Samuel L. Jackson's the villain, and he's awesome. Because Kingsman is awesome as well. Number 4. I'm even going to show you the poster for this movie, because this movie is part of a franchise. The first movie came out in the 70s. It captured everybody's hearts, and we got a couple of movies here in the 2000s. And people didn't think they were as good as the originals. I don't think a lot of people really like them, but we got a new one this year that's continuing it. It's the 7th in a franchise. That movie, Creed. Did you really think I was going to say Star Wars? Yeah, you did, didn't you? Creed reinvigorated the Rocky franchise and gave the Rocky franchise the oomph it needed. It needed that type of energy, and Creed gave it to it. It has emotion, it has plot, it has drama, it has everything you could ever ask for in a Rocky movie. It is there. The best Rocky movie since Rocky. I mean, yeah, I think in my review I said this, but it was one of the few movies that I actually choked up during. Yeah, it was that emotional. Number 3 is a movie by a man who loves to use a lot of great music in his movies. That man is Quentin Tarantino. This movie is definitely not his best movie, and it's definitely not the best of 2015, but it's one of his best movies, and it's in my top 3 for movies of 2015, which says a lot. That movie, The Hateful Eight. I saw this movie yesterday, and it was cool to see it in the Roadshow version, because it has like the overture at the beginning, the intermission in the middle. In this movie, it kind of has a slow build-up, but once it gets to everything, once the tension starts piling in, you're like, oh my god, who did it? Who's the one who says they aren't who they are? And this is something I mentioned in my review. The fact is that none of the characters are likable, but they're all really well written, and you can relate to them, and you're like, they're awesome characters. You get your classic Tarantino isms in this movie. It's just a great movie, and it's number 3 on my list, and it's not just because it's Tarantino, it's because it's a great movie. I talked to a couple people around that are Tarantino fans, and they're like, you know what, Django Unchained was a little too over the top for me. How will I like The Hateful Eight? Well, it's funny you should mention that, because The Hateful Eight, it's still pretty bloody, but compared to Django Unchained, it's pretty tame. This is more of a tension-filled movie. If you're just expecting a 10-minute action scene of blood just flying everywhere like it did in Candyland in Django Unchained, yeah, it's not gonna happen in this. Still graphic, just fair warning, but it's graphic in that Tarantino way where it's kind of funny. So yeah, Hateful Eight, number 3. Two and 3 on this list were ultimately interchangeable for me. I ultimately decided, though, to put The Hateful Eight at number 3 and Ex Machina at number 2. And here is why. After I watched Ex Machina for the first time, I was just like, that movie blew my mind because it had a message that really spoke to me. It's whether AI thinks that they're really human. Can artificial intelligence really feel like they are human beings? It was just well written and well acted, and it was just well directed. I loved every scene in this movie. It's a very dialogue heavy movie. It's a sci-fi movie, but it's very dialogue heavy. Some crazy shit happens at the end of this movie, and it just blew my mind. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening right now. That's why I put Ex Machina at number 2 and The Hateful Eight at number 3. It just, the Ex Machina to me just spoke and had that message that I could relate to more than The Hateful Eight did. Alright guys, now we're coming down to it. The number 1 movie of the year, in my honest opinion. Like I said before, this is my honest opinion. I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash from this, especially from you chicks who are just like, oh, it's so overrated. I don't care. It's my list, and I'm putting it here. We're going to do this with a drum roll, and then I'll introduce what the movie is. So let's start with a drum roll, please. That's right, I don't care what anybody says. Star Wars The Force Awakens is my favorite movie of the year. Personally think Star Wars is the best? No. Is it my personal favorite? Yes. Yes, that's why it's number 1. Here's why it is number 1. Because Star Wars did what Creed did to the Rocky franchise. It reinvigorated and re-energized a franchise that was going downhill and brought it back from the grave and brought it back to respectability. In this case, more than respectability for Star Wars. J.J. Abrams knows what the hell he's doing. Those people at Lucasfilm know what the hell they're doing. Disney knows what the hell they're doing. And I'm hearing that the script for Episode 8 is also great, so I am excited to see Episode... This movie just made me more excited for Star Wars, anything Star Wars. I see a lot of people, every girl I've talked to, they're like, Star Wars is all over the place, why? Because there's a new movie coming out? Duh! We know why 50 Shades of Grey is all over the place, because you girls are desperate and you don't have anything better to do. If you people think 50 Shades of Grey is the best movie of the year, that's totally wrong. And that's a fact. That's not opinion. That is fact. Star Wars The Force Awakens, for me, it was so satisfying. It lived up to all of the hype. Alright guys, that concludes my list for the top 10 best movies of 2015. Check in next time for the top 10 worst movies of 2015. I want some feedback. I want, what is your top 10 list for this year? I want feedback. Drop me a comment in the comment section below. And for more news and reviews on movies, movie trailers, video games, and TV shows, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. If you're on YouTube, hit the big red subscribe button, and you know the whole deal now.